Commander Jake Harrison stood on the bridge of the starship USS Starbound, watching the alien planet grow larger on the main screen. After 3 months of traveling through space, they had finally reached their destination. The planet below was covered in red and orange colors, with strange crystal formations that sparkled in the light of twin suns. "Sir, we're getting a signal from the planet," said Communications Officer Ben Carter, pressing buttons on his control panel. His young face showed excitement mixed with nervousness. This was his first mission to meet aliens, and everyone on the ship felt the same way. Jake nodded and straightened his blue uniform. "Put it on the main speaker, Ben." A deep, growling voice filled the bridge. The words sounded like rocks grinding together, but the computer translated them into English. "Human vessel, you are welcome to land on Kethfer Prime. High Chieftain Zarthak waits to meet with your leaders." "Thank you," Jake replied into his microphone. "We are honored to visit your world." Ambassador Lisa Torres walked onto the bridge. Carrying a small bag with gifts from Earth, she was a smart woman who had spent years learning about different alien cultures. Her job was to make sure humans and the Kethfer could become friends and trade partners. "How are you feeling, Lisa?" Jake asked. "Ready but nervous," she admitted with a small smile. The Kethfer are known throughout the galaxy as fierce warriors. They respect strength above everything else. You need to be careful not to insult them. Dr. Amy Peterson joined them at the front of the bridge. She was the ship's expert on alien life forms. Her computer pad was full of notes about the Kethfer species. "I've been studying everything we know about them," she said. "They're about 7 feet tall, with hard shells covering their bodies like armor. They have sharp claws and can bite through metal." Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Brooks, the ship's security chief, listened quietly from his position near the weapons. "Controls." He was a big man with short black hair and scars on his hands from years of training. Unlike the others, he didn't look worried about meeting dangerous aliens. He just looked ready. "They sound scary," said Engineer Tony Martinez, looking up from his repair work. "Are we sure they want to be friends with us?" "That's what we're here to find out," Lisa answered. "But remember, they invited us here. That's a good sign." The ship shook slightly as it entered the planet's atmosphere. Through the windows, they could see massive cities built into the sides of mountains. Tall towers made of the same crystal they had seen from space reached up toward the sky. Everything looked sharp and dangerous, like the aliens who built it. "Landing pad in sight," reported the pilot. "Setting us down now." Jake felt his stomach tighten as the ship touched the ground. Years of preparation had led to this moment. Humans had been exploring space for decades, but this was their first chance to meet the Kethfer face to face. Everything they did in the next few days would decide if the two species could work together. "Remember the plan?" Jake told his team. "Lisa leads all talking. Amy studies everything, but doesn't touch anything without permission. Tony keeps the ship ready to leave if we need to. Ben translates everything perfectly. Brian keeps us safe, but doesn't start any fights." "What if they challenge us to prove we're strong enough?" Ryan asked. It was a good question. The Kethfer were famous for testing other species through combat trials. "We use our technology," Lisa replied. "Every other species has used their best weapons and tools. The Kethfer respect that." They put on their protective suits and walked to the ship's exit. Jake pressed the button to open the door, and hot air rushed in. The planet smelled like metal and something else they couldn't identify. The gravity was slightly heavier than Earth's, making each step feel harder. Outside, a group of Kethfer warriors waited for them. Jake had seen pictures, but seeing the aliens in person was different. They were even bigger than he expected. With dark shells covering their bodies, their faces had 4 eyes and mouths full of sharp teeth. Each one carried weapons that looked like they could cut through steel. The largest Kethvar stepped forward. His shell was decorated with gold markings that showed his high rank. "I am High Chieftain Zarthak," he said in that grinding voice. "Welcome to our world, humans." Jake bowed slightly, the way Lisa had taught him. "I am Commander Jake Harrison. This is Ambassador Lisa Torres. We bring greetings from Earth and all humanity." Zarthak looked at each human carefully with his 4 eyes. "You are smaller than we expected," he said. It didn't sound like an insult, just an observation. "But size is not everything. We will see what you are made of." Lisa stepped forward with the gift bag. "We brought presents from our world to show our friendship," she said. The chieftain took the bag and looked inside, pulled out a small wooden carving of an eagle, and studied it closely. "This creature it hunts," he asked. "Yes," Amy said. "It's one of our planet's greatest hunters. It can see prey from miles away and strike with perfect accuracy." Zarthak made a sound that might have been approval. "Good, we understand hunters." He put the carving back in the bag. "Come, we will show you our city, and then we will test your worth." As they walked through the streets, humans and aliens stared at each other with curiosity. The Kethvar buildings were carved from the living rock of the mountains. Everything had sharp edges and looked built for war. Children with smaller shells peeked out from doorways before their parents pulled them back inside. "What kind of test?" Lisa asked as they walked. "The same test we give all new species," replied another Kethvar who had introduced himself as War Master Velkorath. "You must face our sacred guardians. If you show courage and skill, we will respect you. If you run or fail, we will know you are weak." Ben whispered the translation to make sure everyone understood. Ryan's hand moved slightly toward his weapon belt, but Jake gave him a look that said to stay calm. They reached a large open area in the center of the city. Thousands of Kethvar sat on stone seats carved into the walls like an ancient arena. In the middle was a cage made of thick metal bars. Something large moved inside it, but they couldn't see what it was. "Behold the Vorthkai," Zarthak announced, with pride in his voice, "the perfect killer. No species has ever defeated one in single combat." The creature inside the cage roared, and the sound made the humans step back. It was 8 feet tall with muscles that rippled under black skin. Its claws were as long as knives, and when it opened its mouth they could see rows of teeth designed for tearing flesh. 8 other species use their energy weapons from far away, War Master Velkorath explained. "This shows wisdom, but not true strength. Will your species choose to face the Vorthkai?" Jake looked at his team. This was not what they had expected. They'd come prepared for talks and trade agreements, not gladiator fights with alien monsters. But backing down now would end any chance of friendship with the Kethvar. The creature in the cage roared again, as if it knew fresh prey had arrived. 10,000 alien eyes watched the humans, waiting to see what they would do. The test had begun, and there was no way to avoid it without losing all respect from the warrior species. Jake took a deep breath and prepared to make the most important decision of his career. Jake stared at the monster in the cage and felt his heart beat faster. The Vorthkai was bigger than any animal he had ever seen on Earth. Its black skin looked tough like leather, and its claws scraped against the metal bars as it moved back. And fourth, the sound made everyone nervous. Commander Lisa whispered, "We need to think about this carefully. If we refuse, we might insult them. But if we accept and fail, someone could die." Dr. Amy Peterson was taking notes on her computer pad while watching the creature. "Look at how it moves," she said quietly. "It's built for killing. Those claws can probably cut through our protective suits like paper." The thousands of Kethvar sitting around the arena watched the humans with their 4 eyes. They made low, rumbling sounds to each other, probably discussing what the humans would do. High Chieftain Zarthak stood with his arms crossed. Waiting for an answer, Tony Martinez checked his equipment belt nervously. "We have plasma rifles, energy shields, and stun grenades," he said. "That should be enough to stop any animal, right?" "Other species have used similar weapons," War Master Velkorath said, hearing Tony's words through Ben's translation device. "The Zephyrians used laser cannons. The Gorlan Empire sent their best soldiers with power armor. Crystalline Collective used energy barriers and force fields." "Did they win?" Ben asked while translating. "They survived," Velkorath replied. "They kept their distance and used their technology wisely. We respected their caution. But none showed true warrior spirit." Ryan Brooks had been quiet during the whole conversation. He studied the Vorthkai like a soldier studies an enemy position. Unlike the others, he didn't look scared. He looked interested. "What exactly are the rules?" Ryan asked. Zarthok turned his attention to the security chief. "One of your people enters the arena. The Vorthkai is released. The trial ends when the creature submits or dies, or when your warrior admits defeat. And if our person gets killed," Jake asked. "That has never happened," the chieftain replied. "All species use their best technology to stay safe. But if your warrior falls, we will stop the trial and heal them if possible." Amy looked up from her notes. "I've been studying this creature's body structure. Its weak points would be the joints where the shell segments connect, the eyes, and possibly the throat area. But you'd need to get very close to target those spots." "Close," Lisa said. "We should use our weapons from a distance like everyone else." Ryan was still watching the monster. "What kind of weapons has it faced before?" he asked. Velkorath seemed pleased by the question. "Energy weapons, projectile firearms, explosive devices, sonic disruptors. Your species has similar technology." "Yes." "Yes," Jake confirmed. "We have all of those things." The Vorthkai suddenly slammed against the cage bars, making a sound like thunder. Its yellow eyes focused on the humans, and it opened its mouth to show teeth as long as fingers. Acid dripped from its mouth and sizzled when it hit the ground. "It's getting excited," Amy observed. "It can smell us. We're probably different from any prey it's encountered before." "That could work for us or against us," Ryan said thoughtfully. Jake made his decision. "We'll use our standard combat equipment. Ryan, you're our best soldier. Are you willing to do this?" Ryan nodded without hesitation. "It's my job to protect this mission. If this is what it takes, I'll do it." But as Ryan walked toward the weapons rack on their ship, something made him stop. He looked back at the cage where the Vorthkai was pacing. The creature was magnificent in a terrifying way. It had probably never been truly challenged, only shot at from far away. "Wait," Ryan said, turning back to his team. "I want to try something different." "Different how?" Jake asked with concern in his voice. Ryan started removing his protective vest and weapon belt. "Every other species has used technology to fight this thing. They kept their distance and treated it like a shooting target. But look at it. This creature is a natural fighter. It deserves to face a real opponent." "Ryan, what are you doing?" Lisa asked in alarm. "I'm going to fight it properly," Ryan replied, continuing to remove his gear. Hand to hand. No weapons, no shields, no technology. The entire human team stared at him in shock. Amy dropped her computer pad. Tony's mouth fell open. Ben forgot to translate for several seconds. "That's suicide," Jake said firmly. "I won't allow it, Commander, with respect. This might be our only chance to really impress them," Ryan explained. He gestured toward the Kethfer spectators. "Look at their faces. They've seen the same thing. Hundreds of times. Aliens with advanced weapons, shooting at their sacred guardian from a safe distance. But they've never seen anyone willing to meet it as an equal." Zarthok had been listening to Ben's translation. The chieftain made several clicking sounds that seemed surprised. He spoke with War Master Velkorath in their own language, both of them looking at Ryan with new interest. "The chieftain asks if you truly intend to face the Vorthkai without weapons," Ben translated. "Tell him yes," Ryan said, pulling off his protective suit until he wore only his basic uniform. "Tell him that humans believe real strength comes from skill, courage, and intelligence, not from tools." When Ben finished translating, the entire arena became silent. 10,000 Kethvers stopped their rumbling conversations. Even the Vorthkai seemed to sense something had changed and pressed its face against the cage bars to get a better look at Ryan. Sure, walked closer to the human. "But no species has ever made such a request," he said through the translator. "Is either the bravest thing we have witnessed or the most foolish." "Maybe both," Ryan admitted with a small smile. Dr. Peterson grabbed Ryan's arm. "At least let me give you some advice about the creature's anatomy. Its shell is hardest at the center of each segment, but softer at the edges. Its muscles are incredibly strong, but it relies on its claws and teeth for killing. If you can avoid those and target the soft spots, you might have a chance." "It's might being the key word," Tony muttered. Ryan listened carefully to Amy's quick lesson about the creature's body structure. He did some stretching exercises to prepare his muscles. The Kethfer watched every movement with fascination. "How do you feel?" Jake asked his security chief. "Honestly, terrified," Ryan replied, "but also excited. I've trained my whole life for impossible situations. This is probably the most impossible situation I'll ever face." Lisa looked around at the alien spectators. "They're all watching you differently now," she observed. Before they looked bored, now they looked hopeful. War Master Velkaroth approached the humans. "Your warrior shows great honor," he said to Jake. "If he truly faces the Vorthkai with only his natural abilities, win or lose, the Kethver will remember this day forever. And if he dies," Jake asked bluntly. "Then he dies as a true warrior should," Velkaroth replied. "But death is not the only outcome that brings honor." Ryan walked to the edge of the arena and looked across at the cage. The Vorthkai was watching him too, its yellow eyes following his every movement. For a moment, man and monster studied each other across the ancient fighting ground. "Open the cage," Ryan called out, the arena filled with the sound of metal grinding against metal. As the cage door slowly rose, the Vorthkai stepped into the arena, its claws clicking against the stone floor. It was even more terrifying in the open space, but Ryan stood his ground. The most dangerous fight in human history was about to begin. The Vorthkai stepped fully into the arena and let out a roar that shook the stone walls. The sound was so loud that several humans covered their ears. But Ryan stood perfectly still, watching the creature's every movement. He had faced many dangerous animals during his military training, but nothing like this. The monster was even more frightening in the open space. It stood 8 feet tall, with muscles that moved like steel cables under its black skin. Its claws gleamed in the light from the twin suns above. Acid continued to drip from its mouth, leaving small holes in the stone floor where it landed. Around the arena, 10,000 Kethver leaned forward in their seats. They had never seen anything like this before. Every other species had used weapons and stayed far away from their sacred guardian. But this small human stood in the center of the fighting ground with nothing but his bare hands. "He's going to die," Tony whispered to the other humans, watching from the side of the arena. "Have faith," Jake replied, though his own voice showed worry. "Ryan knows what he's doing." Dr. Amy Peterson was recording everything on her computer pad, while also monitoring Ryan's health through a small device on his wrist. "His heart rate is elevated but steady," she reported, scared but in control. Ben Carter was translating the excited conversations of the Kethver spectators. "They're saying they've never seen anything like this," he said. "Some of them think he's crazy. Others think he's the bravest warrior they've ever witnessed." The Vorthkai began to circle Ryan slowly like a cat stalking a mouse. Its yellow eyes never left the human, and it made low growling sounds deep in its throat. Ryan turned slowly to keep facing the creature, but he didn't back away or show fear. High Chieftain Zarthak spoke to War Master Velkaroth in their grinding language. Ben caught some of the words and translated quietly. "The chieftain is asking if they should stop this before it starts. He's worried about losing respect from other species if they let a human die in their arena." "What did the War Master say?" Lisa asked. "He said the human chose this path with honor. They must let him walk it." Suddenly, the Vorthkai made its first attack. It lunged forward with incredible speed, its claws reaching for Ryan's chest. Any normal person would have been torn apart in that moment. But Ryan wasn't normal. He had trained for years in close combat, and his reflexes were faster than most humans. Instead of trying to block the attack or run away, Ryan did something unexpected. He stepped to the side at the last second, letting the creature's momentum carry it past him. As it went by, he reached out and grabbed one of its arms. Using the monster's own speed and weight against it, the Vorthkai found itself spinning through the air and crashing into the arena wall. It hit the stone with a loud thud that echoed through the entire space. The creature shook its head, confused. This had never happened before. The Kethver spectators made sounds of amazement. Several stood up from their seats to get a better view. High Chieftain Zarthok's 4 eyes were wide with surprise. "Did you see that?" Amy asked excitedly. "Used physics?" The creature's own mass and velocity worked against it. "Judo," Jake said with understanding. "He used a judo throw." Ryan studied martial arts from many different cultures on Earth. The Vorthkai got back to its feet and roared in anger. It had never been thrown before, and it didn't like the feeling. This time it approached more carefully, its claws extended and its teeth showing. Ryan kept his body loose and ready. He watched the creature's eyes and the way it moved its weight. Every fighter, human or animal, had patterns in how they attacked. He just needed to figure out this monster's pattern. The second attack came faster than the first. Swiped with both claws at once, trying to cut Ryan in half. But again, the human wasn't where the creature expected him to be. Ryan dropped low and rolled between the monster's legs, coming up behind it. Before the Vorthkai could turn around, Ryan jumped onto its back. He wrapped his arms around the creature's thick neck, trying to find the pressure points that Amy had told him about. The monster tried to reach back with its claws, but its arms couldn't bend that way. "He's choking it," Tony said in amazement. But the Vorthkai was stronger than Ryan had expected. It threw itself backward, trying to crush the human against the arena wall. Ryan had to let go and roll away to avoid being smashed. The creature spun around and tried to bite him, its acid-filled mouth snapping shut just inches from Ryan's head. The crowd of Kethfer was getting more excited with each exchange. They began making rhythmic sounds, like drums beating in time with the fight. Their sacred guardian was being challenged in ways it had never experienced before. Ryan backed away to catch his breath. His uniform was torn, and he had several scratches on his arms, but he was still moving well. The Vorthkai had scratches too, and it was breathing harder than before. For the first time in its life, it was having to work for a victory. "This is incredible," Amy said, studying her readings. "The human body is perfectly designed for this type of combat. Our flexibility, our intelligence, our ability to think quickly and adapt. Ryan is using advantages that the creature doesn't have." "What advantages?" Lisa asked. "Humans evolved as persistence hunters," Amy explained while watching the fight. "We're not the strongest or fastest, but we can outlast almost anything. We can think and plan while we fight. Most animals, even smart ones, rely mainly on instinct." Vorthkai made its third attack, but this time it was more cautious. It jabbed with one claw, while keeping the other ready to block. Ryan avoided the first claw, but had to duck quickly when the second one came at his head. For the next few minutes, human and monster circled each other carefully. The Vorthkai would attack, and Ryan would dodge or redirect the attack. Then Ryan would try to grab the creature, and it would pull away or try to bite him. Neither one could gain a clear advantage. The Kethfer spectators were completely silent now, watching every movement with intense focus. They had expected this fight to be over in seconds, with either the human dead or running away in fear. Instead, they were seeing something that challenged everything they thought they knew about combat, Warmaster. Velkarath leaned over to High Chieftain Zarthok and spoke in their language. Ben translated quietly. "He's saying the human fights like water flowing around a rock. He doesn't try to be stronger than the Vorthkai. He just refuses to be where the creature expects him to be." Ryan was getting tired, but so was the monster. The Vorthkai had never had to fight for this long before. Its breathing was becoming labored, and its movements were slightly slower than at the beginning. "He's wearing it down," Jake realized. "Ryan isn't trying to overpower it. He's trying to exhaust it." The next exchange proved Jake was right. When the Vorthkai lunged forward, Ryan stepped aside and grabbed its arm again. But this time, instead of throwing the creature, he twisted its arm in a direction it wasn't meant to go. The monster roared in pain and tried to pull away. Ryan held on, applying more pressure to the joint. The Vorthkai struck at him with its free claw, but its reach was limited by the way Ryan was holding its other arm. For the first time, the creature looked genuinely worried. The impossible was happening. A human with no weapons was systematically dismantling their apex predator through pure skill and determination. The Kethfer watched in stunned silence as Their sacred guardian struggled against an opponent it couldn't understand how to fight. Ryan twisted the Vorthkai's arm harder, and the creature made a sound he had never heard before. It was almost like crying. The monster that had terrified every species in the galaxy was in pain, and it didn't know what to do about it. The humans. Grip on the creature's joint was perfect. He had found exactly the right spot where the shell segments connected, just like Dr. Peterson had told him. The Vorthkai tried to reach him with its other claw, but Ryan shifted his position to stay out of range while keeping the pressure on the painful joint. Around the arena, the HFY spectators were completely silent. Many had stood up from their stone seats without realizing it. High Chieftain Zarthok's mouth was open in amazement. War Master Velkorth was leaning so far forward he almost fell from his viewing platform. "I can't believe what I'm seeing," Amy whispered, checking her instruments. Ryan's heart rate is actually going down. It's getting more calm as the fight goes on, not more excited. "That's impossible," Tony said. "How can he be calmer when fighting that monster?" "Because he's winning," Jake realized. Ryan knows he's figured out how to beat it. The Vorthkai suddenly threw its whole body to the ground, trying to roll and crush Ryan underneath it. But the human had expected this move. He released the creature's arm and rolled away just in time. The monster hit the stone floor hard, and dust flew up around it. Ryan was back on his feet before the Vorthkai could get up. The creature was slower now, and one of its arms was hanging at a strange angle. The joint Ryan had been twisting was damaged, making it hard for the monster to use that claw properly. For the first time since the fight began, Ryan went on the attack. He moved in fast, while the creature was still getting to its feet. Instead of waiting for it to strike first, he grabbed the Vorthkai around the neck from behind and jumped onto its back again. This time, Ryan had a better plan. He locked his legs around the creature's waist and wrapped his arms around its throat in what fighters on Earth called a sleeper hold. The Vorthkai tried to reach back with its good claw, but Ryan pressed his face against the creature's shell to stay out of range. "He's cutting off its air supply," Lisa said in amazement. The monster began to panic. It had never experienced anything like this before. It slammed backward against the arena wall, trying to crush Ryan, but the human held on tight. It spun in circles, trying to throw him off. But Ryan's grip was too strong. Ben was translating the excited voices of the HFY spectators. "They're saying things like impossible, and how can this be, and the small one is defeating our guardian," he reported. The Vorthkai's movements became more desperate. It crashed into the walls again and again, but Ryan absorbed the impacts and maintained his hold. The creature's breathing became harder and more labored. Its yellow eyes began to lose focus. Dr. Peterson was watching her instruments carefully. "The creature's stress levels are going through the roof," she said. "It's never been in a situation where it couldn't escape or overpower its opponent." "How much longer can Ryan hold on?" Jake asked with concern. "His muscle efficiency is incredible," Amy replied. "Humans have better endurance than most species realize. He could maintain this hold for several more minutes if he needs to." The Vorthkai made one last desperate attempt to free itself. Threw its whole body forward, trying to roll and pin Ryan beneath it. But the human had been waiting for this move. As the creature went forward, Ryan shifted his weight and used the monster's own momentum to guide it face first into the arena. The impact was tremendous. The Vorthkai hit the stone wall so hard that cracks appeared in the ancient rock. The creature bounced back and fell to the ground, stunned and gasping for air. Ryan rolled away and got to his feet, ready to continue the fight if necessary. But the Vorthkai didn't get up. It lay on the ground, breathing heavily, looking up at the human with what almost seemed like confusion. For the first time in its life, it had met an opponent it couldn't defeat. The creature that had never known fear was learning what it felt like to be helpless. Ryan stood over the monster, breathing hard but still alert. He could have attacked while it was down, but something stopped him. The creature wasn't trying to fight anymore. It was just lying there watching him with those yellow eyes. "What's he waiting for?" Tony asked. "I think he's waiting to see what the creature will do," Jake replied. "Ryan's not a killer. It's a protector. He only fights when he has to." Vorthkai slowly tried to get back to its feet. Its movements were unsteady, and the damaged arm still wasn't working properly. But instead of attacking Ryan, he did something that shocked everyone in the arena. The creature lowered its head until it was almost touching the ground. It made a soft sound, very different from the roars and growls it had been making during the fight. The sound was almost like a whimper. War Master Velkaroth jumped up from his seat. "Submits," he said, in a voice full of wonder. The Vorthkai submits to the human. A wave of amazement swept through the Kethver spectators. Many began making those rhythmic sounds again, but louder and more excited than before. Others simply stared in disbelief at what they had witnessed. High Chieftain Zarthok climbed down from his platform and walked into the arena. His four eyes moved between Ryan and the submitting Vorthkai. "In all the generations of my people," he said through Ben's translator, "no creature has ever made a Vorthkai submit. They fight until death or until their opponent flees." Was still breathing hard from the fight. His uniform was torn and he had cuts and bruises on his arms and face. But he was alive, and he had one. "I didn't want to kill it," he said. "It's a magnificent creature. It just needed to learn that it's not invincible." The chieftain approached Ryan slowly, as if he was afraid the human might be dangerous. "You have done something that was thought impossible," Zarthok said. "Our sacred guardian has recognized you as the superior warrior." War Master Velkaroth entered the arena carrying something that made all the other Kethver gasp. It was his personal weapon, a curved blade that had been in his family for generations. Without hesitation, he placed it at Ryan's feet. "I offer my blade to the warrior who taught us that strength comes in forms we never imagined," Velkaroth said formally. One by one, other Kethver warriors began entering the arena. Each one carried their personal weapon, and each one placed it at Ryan's feet. Soon the human was surrounded by a pile of alien weapons, all offered in respect for what he had accomplished. Ryan looked around at all the weapons, and then at the faces of the Kethver watching him. "I don't need your weapons," he said. "I'm honored by your respect." High Chieftain Zarthak made a sound that might have been laughter. "Keep the weapons as gifts," he said. "But know that you have given us something far more valuable. You have shown us that there are types of strength we never knew existed." The Vorthkai was still lying with its head lowered, occasionally looking up at Ryan with what almost seemed like admiration. The creature that had been the ultimate predator had found its master in the most unlikely opponent imaginable. Jake and the rest of the human team entered the arena to check on Ryan. They were amazed to find him tired, but essentially unharmed, while the legendary monster that had defeated every challenger lay submissive at his feet. The impossible had happened. A human with bare hands had defeated the apex predator of an entire species, and in doing so, had changed everything about how the galaxy viewed humanity. 3 days after Ryan's victory over the Vorthkai, the entire atmosphere on Kethver Prime had changed. What started as a simple diplomatic visit had become the most important event in recent galactic history. News of a human defeating their sacred guardian with bare hands spread across the planet faster than wildfire. Ambassador Lisa Torres sat in the chieftain's great hall, surrounded by scrolls and documents that would change the relationship between humans and Kethver forever. The trade agreement she had hoped to negotiate had grown into something much larger. High Chieftain Zarthok was offering a full military alliance between their species. "Your people have shown us something we thought impossible," Zarthok explained through Ben's translation device. "We believed that strength came only from superior weapons and technology. But your warrior Ryan proved that the greatest strength comes from the mind and spirit working together with the body." Jake Harrison nodded as he reviewed the agreement terms. The Kethver were offering to share their advanced metallurgy techniques, which could make human ships and buildings much stronger. They also wanted to give humans access to their defensive shield technology, something they had never offered to any other species. "What do you want from us in return?" Lisa asked, though she already suspected the answer. War Master Velkaroth leaned forward eagerly. "We want to learn your fighting methods, not just Ryan's techniques, but the philosophy behind them. How do humans train their minds to stay calm in impossible situations? How do you turn an enemy's strength against them instead of trying to overpower them?" "Doctor." Amy Peterson looked up from her research notes. Over the past 3 days, she had been studying Kethfer biology and comparing it to human physiology. I think I understand why Ryan's victory impressed them so much, she said. The Kethfer are naturally stronger and tougher than humans, but they're not as flexible. Their hard shells protect them, but also limit their movement. They've never seen fighting styles that use speed and flexibility instead of pure force. Engineer Tony Martinez was examining some of the Kethfer technology they had been shown. Their metalworking is incredible, he reported. They can create alloys that are stronger than anything we have on Earth, but somehow lighter too. If we can learn their techniques, it would revolutionize our construction industry. Ryan Brooks was still recovering from his fight, but he had become something of a celebrity among the Kethfer. Wherever he went on the planet, crowds of aliens would gather to see the human who had defeated their apex predator. Children would peek out from behind their parents to get a look at him. It's strange, Ryan told his teammates. They keep calling me the Vort Slayer, but I didn't kill the creature. I just showed it that it could be beaten. That might be even more impressive to them, Ben suggested. Killing shows you're stronger, but making something submit without killing it shows you're wiser. The Vorthkai itself had become an important part of the story. After its defeat, the creature had been returned to its habitat, but it was behaving differently than before. Kethfer beastkeepers reported that it seemed calmer and more thoughtful. It would sometimes look toward the arena where it had fought Ryan, as if remembering the lesson it had learned. On the fourth day, High Chieftain Zarthok made an announcement that shocked both species. He declared that humans would be allowed to establish the first alien embassy ever, as permitted on Kethfer Prime. The building would be constructed using both human engineering and Kethfer materials, creating something entirely new. This embassy will be a symbol, Zarthok explained at the ceremony. It will show that different species can combine their strengths to create something better than either could make alone. Lisa was amazed by how much the relationship between the two species had changed. When we arrived, I was hoping we might be able to arrange some basic trade deals, she told Jake. Now we're looking at a partnership that could last for generations. Amy had made another important discovery during her research. Human muscle. Density and bone strength are actually perfect for the type of combat Ryan demonstrated. She explained to the gathered diplomats, "We evolved as persistence hunters on Earth. We're not the biggest or strongest, but we can outlast almost anything. We can also adapt our fighting style during combat, something most species can't do as well." The Kethfer military leaders were particularly interested in this information. They had spent centuries developing weapons and armor to make their warriors more powerful. But Ryan had shown them that sometimes the best weapon was knowledge of how to use your natural abilities most effectively. Tony had been working with Kethfer engineers to understand their technology better. They grow their metals instead of just melting and shaping them, he reported excitedly. It's almost like farming, but with crystalline structures. The result is materials that are incredibly strong but also have properties that change based on temperature and pressure. Ben had been busy recording everything for the historical archives back on Earth. This is going to change how humans are viewed throughout the galaxy, he said. Every species will hear about what happened here. They'll know that humans can accomplish things that seem impossible. As the days passed, more details of the alliance were worked out. The Kethfer would help humans develop better defensive technologies for their space stations and colonies. In return, humans would establish training academies to teach Kethfer warriors about tactical thinking and adaptive combat techniques. Ryan found himself appointed as the first human combat instructor to an alien species. Never expected to become a teacher, he admitted. But if it helps our species work together, I'm willing to do it. The most surprising development came when War Master Velkaroth made a personal request. He wanted to learn not just human fighting techniques, but human philosophy about conflict resolution. Your warrior could have killed our sacred guardian, he said, but he chose to teach it respect instead. This shows wisdom we want to understand. On their last day on Kethfer Prime, the human delegation was given a tour of the planet's most sacred sites. They saw ancient temples carved into mountains and crystal gardens that had been growing for thousands of years. At each location, Kethfer citizens would approach Ryan and make gestures of respect. High Chieftain Zarthok gave a farewell speech that Ben carefully translated for the historical record. When you arrived, we saw you as small, soft creatures who might make acceptable trading partners, the chieftain said. Now, we see you as warriors of a different kind. You fight with your minds as much as your bodies. You turn disadvantages into advantages. You show mercy when you could show force. The chieftain paused and looked directly at Ryan. Your species will either be the greatest allies the galaxy has ever known, or the most dangerous enemies any of us could face. We choose to walk beside you, rather than against you. It's the UFS Starbound, prepared to leave Kethford Prime. Its cargo holds were filled with gifts and samples of Kethford technology. More importantly, its communication systems carried the signed alliance agreement that would reshape interstellar politics. Lisa looked out at the planet growing smaller behind them. When we get back to Earth, everything is going to change, she said. This alliance will make humanity a major power in galactic affairs. Jake nodded, but his attention was focused on the future. The real question is what we do with this opportunity. The Kethfer respects us now, but we'll need to prove we deserve that respect every day going forward. Amy was already making plans for joint research projects. Tony was designing new ships that would use both human and Kethfer technology. Ben was preparing his reports for the galactic news networks, and Ryan was looking forward to returning home, so he knew his life would never be the same. He had become the human who proved that sometimes the greatest victories come not from superior weapons, but from superior thinking and an unwillingness to give up. The galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again.